Hello, everybody. This is Carl E. Long. Welcome to my podcast, Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. So glad you are joining me again for this podcast. Having a fairly okay day today, but there's so much in the news that I am a little distressed today. I could hardly function because I work from home and I watch news. I'm a news junkie a little bit. Tried to get away from it after the election, but doing this podcast, I'm really into news now because I want to stay up to date on what is happening in our country. So I'm a little distressed today, a little distressed of what's going on. And there's a lot, as you all may know, what's going on in our country. There's a lot. And I hope you're one of the ones that are tuning in and have not tuned out. Tuning out, I thought was going to be healthy, but it's not, guys, because you're going to wake up one day and this is not going to look like the country that you lived in. I mean that. I really do mean that. And when I started doing this podcast, I knew that I was going to be traipsing on waters where a lot of hate was going to come my way. And some of my comments have been ever so lovely. They have been. And like I tell you, we as liberals, we don't usually troll conservative sites or places. We do our own thing. We don't bother anybody, but they will find you with all of these fake user IDs and bots and everything else to try to dispel and just say a whole lot of hateful things. And it's discouraging, but it doesn't scare me, not at all. I listen to them and I try to reason with them, but there is a hardcore group of people who really do believe that what Donald Trump and his regime is doing is what the American people want, is what, and think that is who we are. This is not who we are. This is not who we are, guys. When I saw something on the news today when they were saying that millions of people will probably die because of the dismantling of USAID. Guys, I know you guys have been up in the middle of the night and you've seen the starving children. Feed the children. There are people on this earth who don't have it as good as you. Water is something that is a delicacy. To have water, to have fresh food, to have clean water. And that is what that agency did. That agency helped a lot of these countries like that. That's who we are as Americans. But you can ask any one of the market, they could care less. Who are we? And they claim to be Christian? I just cannot fathom that at all. I played you guys on my last episode. I played a clip of a MAGA Christian who was pleading with her people to say this is not of Christ. This is not of God. What we are doing is not right. That she was going to stand with her fellow man and not with this. So the air of hate is here, guys. And it has a face. And it has a face. And the face is not beautiful. So that is where we are, and that is where we stand, and we continue to fight. But I do know this. I told you guys I am a saved, filled Christian man, and I do know that God is not a God of chaos and confusion. So in the end, all this will be fixed, and I hold that hope to my heart very dearly. I do. That God is going to take care of everything as he said he would. So today's episode, guys, is all about the Democrats. The Democrats are on trial. They are. The lowest approval rating since 1992. Come on, Dems. I know it's a lot. I know you guys are working hard. The congressmen are having the hardest time, but we got the attorney generals and the governors who are fighting, and a lot of lawsuits are going forward. So there is some work being done, people. There is some work being done, so don't despair. They're trying, but they need to unite. They really need to unite. So today's podcast episode is Democrats Divided. America wants unity. We want unity. That's what we want. We want unity. We want fight. I know we're used to the ones that always take the high ground, try to do the right thing, but these are not those times. We have to fight. We have to fight with everything that we have to stop this. God, I wish people had voted like they should have voted. We wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be right here. We wouldn't. So a lot of people are changing their minds, and a lot of Republicans, but the Republicans are saying those are Democrats that are speaking. No, it's some Republicans, but you can't, it doesn't matter if you give them the truth. They will never take the truth. They won't take the truth. That their own people are upset with Donald Trump. His approval rating is going down. A lot of those polls are skewed toward Republican databases or Republican focus groups. So those are Republicans too. So it's going to take everybody. I'm specifically talking to you independent voters who swing both ways anyway. Have you now understood that this is not what you voted for? Yeah. So, and don't take this lightly. The Republican unity is fake. It's loyalty. And it's also fear. They are afraid of Donald Trump. Trust me. That's the unity right there. They are afraid of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the clear leader of the Republican conservative movement. But not because everybody wants to follow him, because they are afraid. They are afraid. I don't know why everybody's afraid of this little millionaire wannabe from New York. God. And if a person can't see the kind of people that he surround himself with, all of them have junk of some sort. Just look them up. He's got a few people in there that's, that's okay or whatever. They're just scared, but they all got junk. Those are the kind of people that surround himself. The people he surrounds himself with are the same kind of people that he is. So there you go. But you know what? Independent voters still have this country in hostage. Never mind the democracy is crumbling. Again, their pocketbooks are number one. So I want you to listen to this round table that I found. I think it was MSNBC. I'm not sure. I can't remember. Maybe it's CBS. Of how they were like, I thought he was going to fix the economy. You could care less about anything except your pocketbook. I am really disappointed in independent voters and how they have held this country hostage. Because we've always had to woo the independent voters, the swing state. I'm sick of it. Pick a side, for God's sake. If the most important thing about to you is that you got money in your pocket, you don't care about your fellow man, then what kind of Christian are you if you are? I'm struggling like crazy right now. But I would never turn my back on the people of this country and doing what I can do to help in any kind of way. So let me just listen to this, guys, and tell me what you think. Here we go.
Everything I believed was going to happen, I think, is going to go the opposite direction.
It's getting to the point where I'm almost scared to watch the news.
A lot of his actions have just been disruptive and creating chaos.
I don't think anyone would have voted for him if they expected to see what we're seeing now.
I was voting for him based off of the economy the first time around, and I'm seeing a significant decline.
It's very scary.
So just to emphasize, these are swing voters, meaning they voted for Joe Biden in 2020 and Donald Trump in 2024.
I mean, I think it's just fascinating to hear people who openly admitted they voted for Trump because they trusted him on the economy just a couple of months later saying, this is not what I signed up for. In fact, this is the opposite of what I signed up for. Because in a lot of ways, Donald Trump wasn't secretive about what he wanted to do on tariffs. But to your point, I do think it's the volatility that is really driving this concern. I mean, when you ask senators on the Hill, Republicans, to respond to some of these tariffs, their answers over the last couple of days have been like, let's just wait 24 hours before I really know
Before he
it's
changes
something
them
I need
again.
to worry about.
So there you go. I still get very angry with independent voters. I voted on the economy and we tried to tell you guys, why did y'all believe this crap? I don't understand why you believed it. This man is not trustworthy, but nobody seems to care. I will never understand this ever in my life. I just won't. I just won't. God has given me the gift of discernment, and you can discern. I discern people very easily. You know, if I thought he had some sort of a good side, which I've been looking for it, I'd be the first one to tell you. I have never felt sorry for him or anything. Never. There's never been any point where I felt sorry for that guy. Never. And I'm just being honest. So, the deal on the table now is Dear Chuck Schumer. Everybody knows Chuck Schumer is the leader of, the minority leader of the Senate for Democrat. He and 10 other Democrats voted on the continuing resolution bill, which all the Democrats wanted to be unified and they wanted to shut the government down. Because what was in that bill was giving Donald Trump kind of a carte blanche to continue what he's doing. But dear Chuck Schumer, he decided the lesser of the two evils, that shutting down the government was worse. But you dissented with just 10 people when the majority of your people, Chuck, you're usually a rally guy. I'm very disappointed in him. I am very disappointed in him. And these other 10 Democrats, 10 Senate Democrats helped Republicans advance a GOP-crafted stopgap spending bill, paving the way for it to pass ahead of the midnight deadline despite concerns from scores of their colleagues. I want you to know the names. The Democrats who voted to advance the measure were Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York, Senate Democratic Whip Dick Durbin of Illinois, Senators Catherine Cortez Masto from Nevada, Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire, John Fetterman, of course, he gets under my craw, from Pennsylvania, Gary Peters of Michigan, Brian Schatz of Hawaii, and dear Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, Jean Shaheen of New Hampshire, and Angus King of Maine. An independent who caucuses with Democrats also voted to advance the measure. They joined every Republican except Rand Paul, who voted against the measure. Rand Paul was the only Republican that voted with the Democrats. Yeah, Peters and Shaheen have announced they will retire at the end of their current term. So they don't have nothing to lose. So they're doing whatever they want to do. So those are what they voted on. So what exactly is in that bill? I'll give you a little summary here of what's in the continuing resolution bill and why most of the majority of the Senate, House, and the Democrats, all of the House voted except for one dissenter who voted for the continuing resolution. But all the rest of the House, they all voted against it. They were unified except for that one person. All right. So here we have the summary. All right. The most recent continuing resolution, CR bill, passed by the Senate on March 14th, funds the federal government through September 30th, 2025. It only lasts that long. That's all. Here are some of the key highlights. Defense and veteran health care includes $6 billion in new spending for defense and another $6 billion for veterans health care. Medicare and Medicaid extensions extend several Medicare and Medicaid programs, including telehealth waivers and rural hospital support, disaster relief emergency designations, retains emergency designations for previously appropriated disaster funds, agricultural and food programs. Yes. And let's see, that provides funding for federal meat and poultry inspectors. Immigration and Homeland Security extends programs related to the immigration and cyber security. This CR prevents a government shutdown and maintains funding at a FY 2024 levels for most programs with some adjustments, and let me know. All right, so that was what the bill summarizes. Now, continued resolutions of what they have been doing. It's a Band-Aid, guys, and they have been doing these a lot to keep the government from shutting down, because if they shut the government down, people don't get paid. We got that. Democrats typically vote for it. But because Republicans are leading all the branches of government, they wanted them to be able to fix it. If they shut the government down, then you have to do what's done. They want them to take, and Democrats are like not going to help them with anything. But there were some things in that bill that they opposed. Let me read those to you. Democrats have expressed opposition to several aspects of the continuing resolution bill passed in March 2025. Their main concerns include cuts to non-defense spending. This bill reduces non-defense spending below 2024 levels, which Democrats argue could harm programs like medical research and housing assistance. All right, so there is something in there. What I read to you the first time is what it said, but when you read into the crux of these bills, you find out what really goes on. All right, because they always throw stuff in these bills and try to sneak it in sometimes. Increased discretion for the Trump administration. Now, this is the one that they don't want in there. Democrats are worried of the bill giving administration more leeway to redirect funds potentially away from priorities like combating fentanyl and toward initiatives like mass deportations. So there's something always in here. I'll give you a little strawberry. They always do. And here's the other one. Lack of specific funding directives. This bill removes many funding directives, raising concern about how allocated funds will be used. So you don't know. This is what's so crazy. And then there's like a focus on defense spending. While defense spending sees a $6 billion increase, Democrats feel this comes at the expense of other critical areas. These points highlight the tension between the parties over budget priorities and governance. So there were some things in there that's going to give Donald Trump just more leverage to do what he can do, and it's going to bypass. And if it is done at the congressional level, then there's nothing to fight in the courts because the law is there. So the courts will come back and say, well, you voted on it, so that he can do that, right? You see what I'm saying? When it goes through Congress and it's ratified, then there's no recourse to fight it because you voted on it. Fair, and it won. So it becomes the law. Are you with me? All right. So that is the reason why everybody is mad with Chuck Schumer, because he just broke ranks and took 9 other Democrats with him. And the thing passed. Yes, the government would have been shut down. And his argument is if Donald Trump shut the government down, if they let the government shut down, who's to say that he would bring back agencies and things at that point? He thinks that maybe they wouldn't bring things back. Well, that would be their problem. Which is, I mean, I know it was a lesser of two evils, but I think putting in a bill that says Donald Trump can pretty much do what he wants to do with funding is dangerous. That's what the scary part was. And that's why they didn't want to vote on this bill. Because what happens if they don't get the votes, then they have to negotiate. That was the deal. If they don't get the votes, then they have to come back to the Democrats and say, take this out, take this out, take this out. And then we can open up the government. But we didn't get there. We didn't get to the negotiation point because Chuck Schumer and his 9 band of merry men and women deflected. See me? All right? Oh, Jesus. This is getting crazy. So what I want you to listen to now is a parade of some of the Democrats speaking out on what Chuck Schumer did. I just saw tonight that he canceled he's on a book tour. He's supposed to be on The View coming up here. And he has a book that's out about anti-Semitism. But now, because he sees how America is outraged with him, he's afraid to go on the book tour. So he's like postponed it. But he's going to be on The View, and we'll see how that comes out. So I'll be sure and cover some of that with you. So let's listen to my congressman from the District 30 of Texas, Jasmine Crockett, with her interview with Jake Tapper on CNN. Here we go.
From Texas, Jasmine Crockett. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you squeezing us in before you go to church. This has been a rough 72 hours for Democrats. I want to play some of what Democratic Senate Leader Schumer told me on The Lead on Friday about his decision to vote with the Republicans to fund the government. Take a listen.
A government shutdown gives Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and DOJ almost complete power as to what to close down, because they can decide what is an essential service. If they determine that SNAP, kids shouldn't get food, is not essential, they can just cut it out summarily. They could fire half the workers in the federal government. It would have been a far worse consequence.
So he's saying that the path that House Democrats wanted would have presented a worse consequence. Is he wrong?
He's absolutely wrong. I mean, look at the reality of the votes, right? I understand that the American people are frustrated. Please believe many of us did not sleep because we were calling and trying to impress upon the senators the importance of pushing back in this moment. And as you saw, we had all but one Democrat in the House that voted for this. So that's 212 Democrats in the House. And then you had the vast majority of senators vote for it or vote against it as well. And so the idea that Chuck Schumer is the only one that's got a brain in the room and the only one that can think through all of the pros and cons is absolutely ridiculous. And Jake, you and I both know that this administration could care less about whether or not they violate the law. We know that we've had to rely heavily upon the courts. And I want to say, as you're talking about the polling on my party, I want to say that it is the Democratic attorney generals and some governors that are standing up against this administration and bringing those lawsuits and winning every single time. They are losing in court. Could we do a better job of making sure that the American people know that we are winning in the courts? We probably could. But at the end of the day, it's still Democrats that are winning for the American people.
Some progressive groups are calling for new leadership in the Senate for Democrats. Even House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, your leader, he was asked if he supports Schumer as leader of the Senate Democrats, and he said, next question. Do you think Senate Democrats should replace Chuck Schumer?
I think Senate Democrats have to sit down and take a look and decide whether or not Chuck Schumer is the one to lead in this moment.
You're close with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Some of your fellow House Democrats say, and not just progressives, by the way, we've heard that moderates have said this too, that they're ready to support her to challenge Chuck Schumer in a Democratic primary. Would you get behind that?
That's 4 years from now. If you were asking me at least in 2 years, then I would have an absolute answer. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are watching his leadership in this moment. This is the moment. We don't even know what elections will look like in 4 years if we will have elections. And so I definitely think that younger, fresher leadership may be something that many of us, not just depending on what part of the spectrum you're on, but many Americans may be looking for, especially in the state of New York.
How to take on the Republicans is a big topic of discussion among Democrats. Last week, you were one of those who participated in a Choose Your Fighter video. It got some criticism online, including Democratic Senator John Fetterman called it bizarre and reportedly mocked it in the Senate hallway. I will say that your punching looked better than some of your colleagues. Fetterman has been criticizing your party for undignified antics and a sad cavalcade of cell phones during the president's address to Congress. What's your response to Senator Fetterman?
he's not the one to talk about anything. I mean, this is a guy that doesn't seemingly want to own a suit. I'm not really sure. But I don't show up in hoodies when I'm going on the floor. And so the idea that you would say that we could not have a moment in which an influencer asked us to do this. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you and tell you that when she asked me to jump, I said, did you ask my older colleagues to do this? Because I feel like you're picking on me because you think that my knees are a little younger. And I did not know who all was in this particular trend whatsoever. And I think that it is important that people see that we're real people. And even if that means that there's a moment to laugh, that's okay, especially since it seems like we're doing more crying than anything. But just know that we were not on the House floor jumping around at all, whereas Senator Fetterman is consistently walking around the Senate chamber, and he is walking around in such a way that they literally had to change the rules in the Senate so that he could walk around that way. So I just don't think that he's necessarily the one to actually have an opinion about this.
Let me ask you about the big news of this morning. President Trump seeking to use the Alien Enemies Act, a wartime authority, a law signed by John Adams in 1798, to deport undocumented Venezuelans that the administration say are dangerous individuals with ties to the gang Tren de Aragua. That gang is obviously associated with a lot of crime, human trafficking, drug dealing, theft, shootings, including in your state of Texas, right outside of your congressional district. Do you agree with this? And if not, what's your issue with the U.S. using any tool at its disposal to remove undocumented violent people from this country?
Well, my argument is that we already have tools that are available to remove undocumented violent people from our country. And so the idea that you want to go into a zombie law, this is kind of like what we saw in Arizona when they decided to revive a zombie law around abortion. It is the fact that we can't trust this administration to actually use a scalpel, but instead they love to use a butcher knife on things. And so giving them this wide latitude to just kind of go across and just claim that anybody is anything is wrong. And so we do have courts, we do have processes, we do have laws, and we should just go ahead and use those. There's a reason that nobody else has decided to go back into Adams' times in order to try to find ways to make sure that we can keep our country safe.
All right, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Did y'all catch that when she said, I don't know if we're going to even have elections? Did you catch that? It's something to think about. I mean, when you're in a dictatorship, there are no elections. The guy that's in charge is always in charge. So there's no government. It's all done by the dictator. So she said that. And that was a real cognizant thought. Because that's how scary it's gotten, guys. It really has gotten scary. So let's listen to her friend, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But before that, Fetterman, he's starting to get under my craw as well. I mean, what are you doing? I don't even know. I mean, I used to think he was some kind of a upstanding guy, but he's done some stuff. So we're not sure what you're doing. Here we go. AOC on Schumer.
What do you think of the job Democratic leaders are doing, not just Senate Democratic leaders, but also Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House, your fellow New Yorker, in terms of standing up to Trump?
Well, when we look at this vote around this government funding bill that we saw this week, Leader Hakeem Jeffries was able to keep the entire House Democratic caucus united and together.
Except for Jared Golden.
Right.
Except for
every
one.
single House Democrat, including every single House Democrat who won a Trump district, except for one out of over 200, voted against this deeply partisan, extreme Republican spending bill. Not just because they're Democrats, but because they know it's bad for the country. Mm-hmm. This bill is bad for the country. And so I think that in terms of Democratic leadership in the House, we've seen that result in the House. I think it's time that we see similar results in the Senate.
All right, got one more clip on her on Schumer. Let's listen in.
Chuck Schumer, I guess the Senate Democratic leader, your senator, said at this meeting that he is going to vote for cloture. He is going to vote to allow there to be a simple majority vote. You think that's wrong?
I believe that's a tremendous mistake. Yes.
Why?
I think, well, first and foremost, the American people, if anyone has held a town hall or has seen what has been happening in town halls, American people, whether they are Republicans, independents, Democrats, are up in arms about Elon Musk and the actual gutting of federal agencies across the board. This continuing resolution codifies much of this chaos that Elon Musk is wreaking havoc on the federal government. It codifies many of those changes. It sacrifices and completely eliminates congressional authority in order to review these impulsive Trump tariffs that he's switching on and off. And on top of that, for folks who are concerned about effectiveness in government, this Republican extreme spending bill removes all of the guardrails and all of the accountability measures to ensure that money is being spent in the way that Congress has directed for it to be spent. This turns the federal government into a slush fund for Donald Trump and Elon Musk. It sacrifices congressional authority, and it is deeply partisan. And so to me, it is almost unthinkable why Senate Democrats would vote to hand the few pieces of leverage that we have away for free when we've been sent here to protect Social Security, protect Medicaid, and protect Medicare.
What do you think of the job that Chuck Schumer is doing? Would you ever challenge him, do you think?
I think that what we need right now is a united Senate Democratic caucus that can stand up for this country and not vote for cloture and not vote for this bill. And I think that the strength that we have is in this moment. Reconciliation and all of these, Republicans do not need Democratic votes for that. They need it for this. And so the strength of our leadership in this moment is going to demonstrate the strength of our caucus. And I cannot urge enough how bad of an idea it is to empower and enable Donald Trump and Elon Musk in this moment. It is dangerous and it is reckless.
Well, you just talked about the strength of your leadership. Chuck Schumer just said that he's going to vote for cloture. Not only the Democrats can do it, but he's going to participate in it. Does that mean that you think he's a weak Senate leader?
I think that would be a mistake. But we have time between now and tomorrow, and I hope that individuals that are considering that reconsider it. I genuinely do. I don't think it's what New Yorkers want. I don't think it's what the country wants. This is genuinely not about Democrats or Republicans. This is about deep cuts to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. This is about the evisceration of the federal government. This is about codifying the looting that is happening at the behest of Elon Musk in order to pay for his tax breaks for billionaires. And we have a responsibility to stand up.
So that was before the vote. That particular, I want you to hear that before the vote. So as you know, it didn't work. Chuck Schumer voted with the continuing resolution vote that had all the crap in the bill that basically just handed Donald Trump all this power. Yes, that's what happened. So, I mean, it's an uproar with the Democratic Party, and we got to get it together, Democrats. We got to get it together. I mean, some of you are in districts that are red or whatever, but like she said, even the ones that were in the tough red districts, Jasmine said, they even voted on the bill, which means they have a chance of losing their districts for doing that. But they did it anyway for the sake of democracy. That's what Democrats are all about. We're not playing games. We're not playing these games. We're not going to sit back and let this happen. So here is Leader Jeffries on his take on Schumer. He walks very cautiously of saying anything about Schumer himself. And this might be prior to the vote. But I can't remember. This is when he was on The Weekend on MSNBC. Let's listen to Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
This now is House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, sir. Leader Jeffries, we had Congressman Clyburn on earlier in the show, and he described you as being blindsided by Senate leadership. Help us understand what happened.
Well, House Democrats were strongly opposed to this reckless Republican spending bill because it would hurt the American people, hurt seniors, hurt families, hurt veterans, and enact cuts that we believed were not in the best interest of the American people. We opposed it from the very beginning all the way through the Senate vote, and will continue to impose these types of cuts to the extent that they are put forward by Republicans. The Senate position was the Senate position. There were many Senate Democrats that shared our view with respect to this reckless Republican spending bill, and we're all going to have to come together to move forward to oppose the Republican budget that they are trying to jam down the throats of the American people over the next few weeks.
Leader Jeffries, I have heard that from a number of House Democrats specifically, and some people aligned with House Democrats in the last 24 to 48 hours that, look, Democrats have to come together because there's more work to be done. But I do think that the rift that we are seeing, and not even rift, I just think it's about a difference of approach. You have a number of Democrats, yourself included, House Democrats writ large, all of you all, and a number of Senate Democrats also that are ready to fight, that want to demonstrate to the American people that you understand not just the stakes, but you are doing everything you can about it. And then you have a contingent of senators, Democrats in the Senate that don't necessarily share the sentiment that you have about the approach. From the outside looking in, some people are saying, well, are Schumer's and Jeffries not speaking? But it's my understanding that you all did communicate, and then something happened for Leader Schumer that changed his mind. And I'm just wondering, do you have any insight on what that was, or have you and Leader Schumer had a conversation since that vote?
We haven't had a conversation since that vote. I was down in Houston helping to memorialize and funeralize the great Sylvester Turner. I just got back to New York. I do expect to have a conversation with him at some point later on today. Look, Chuck and I disagreed as it relates to the approach and outcome relative to what we viewed as a reckless Republican spending bill. And the effort to try to jam these cuts down the throats of the American people, cuts to health care, cuts to veterans benefits, and cuts to nutritional assistance to children and families throughout America, while potentially handing a blank check to Donald Trump and Elon Musk to continue their extreme Project 2025 agenda. At the same period of time, Chuck and I agree on the overwhelming majority of issues moving forward, including our effort to oppose the largest potential Medicaid cut in American history. And we're all going to have to come together. House Democrats, Senate Democrats, governors, elected officials, advocacy organizations, civil rights groups, the democracy reform groups who are doing a tremendous job stopping the Trump administration in court. We are all going to have to come together to oppose the effort to rip away health care from the American people, which is why Democrats on Tuesday across the country are having a Medicaid Day of Action in blue states, purple states, and red states to save Medicaid for the American people.
Leader Jeffries, you say that Democrats will have to come together on this issue to hold the line, but I presume that that was the thinking going into the vote last week. And yet that line was not held. So I think a lot of Americans, particularly those who are looking for some action from the Democratic Party on this, and I want to iterate, it's not, in my view, not just action within the Democratic Party, but how the Democratic Party rallies the entire country, Republicans like myself, independents, and others, to this idea to stand on that wall to prevent this deconstruction of our government. To that point, with respect to how this holding this line will go, you have from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in a Blue Sky tweet noting, among the material devastation to everyday people, Senate Dems have now blown a hole in their ability to work with the House. We had an agreed upon plan. House took immense risk. The Senate turned around midway and destroyed it with a fear-based, inexplicable abdication. They own what happens next. You just described what the next is on the healthcare front. How do you hold the line so to A, repair that hole in the wall from what happened last week and prevent another one from opening up?
We have the Republicans on the run on three different issues. We have them on the run with respect to the economy. Donald Trump and House Republicans promised that they were going to lower the high cost of living But instead, costs haven't gone down. They've gone up. Inflation is going up. Why? Because Donald Trump and Republicans haven't been focused on doing anything to lower the high cost of living. Not a single bill, not a single executive action, not a single administrative order. We, as House Democrats, have to make sure we forcefully make the case to everyday Americans that we are trying to build an affordable economy. We know that costs are too high, and we know that people are struggling to live paycheck to paycheck. And that should never happen in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We got to hold the line as it relates to the economic narrative. And we see that Trump's poll numbers are collapsing in that regard. The American people are with us. We got to hold the line as it relates to the effort to save Medicaid and prevent the type of devastation that Republicans are trying to bring to hurt children, hurt families, hurt pregnant women, hurt seniors, hurt Americans with disabilities who rely upon Medicaid to go see a doctor and to live the best possible life. This Medicaid cut that Republicans are trying to visit upon the American people will close hospitals, including in rural America, and close nursing homes. Every single Democrat in the House and in the Senate opposed the Republican budget resolution. We have to stay the course as it relates to that level of principled opposition. And lastly, we have the Republicans on the run with respect to their tax scheme. They want to rip away money from everyday Americans so that they can fund massive tax cuts for their super rich donors like Elon Musk and the wealthy, the well-off, and well-connected corporations. That is not acceptable, and the American people are with us on that. And so it's my hope and expectation, not just in the next few days, but in the next few weeks, in the next few months, as we engage in this legislative struggle, that we can stay together in defense of the American people.
Leader Jeffries, I want to follow up with you about Medicaid because on Tuesday, as you know, Democrats across the country will have a national day of action on Medicaid. We had Governor O'Malley, former Governor O'Malley, on yesterday talking about the Social Security aspect of what Republicans are talking or are potentially going to do in the breakdown within the Social Security system. And I have to tell you that folks out there, people who watch this show, who see our clips online, they think that we are not telling the truth about Social Security and Medicaid. Speaker Johnson is actively going around saying that when Democrats like yourself suggest that they are going to cut Medicaid, that it is a lie. So what is your message to people and your response to Speaker Johnson, who says that the Democrats aren't telling the truth on this?
House Republicans are lying. Their own budget resolution set in motion up to $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid. That would be the largest Medicaid cut in American history. As Democrats, listen, we all support any effort to try to root out waste, fraud, and abuse. There is not that level of waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid, in Social Security, in Medicare. And so they're using that excuse to try to visit these extreme cuts on their own people and everyday Americans all across the country. And independent observers who have studied their budget proposal have said the same thing, that they are going after these important safety net programs and earned benefits. Listen, the average Social Security recipient in the United States of America receives about $65 a day in benefits. $65 a day. Elon Musk, in his contracts with the government, the federal government, gets about $8 million a day. If they were really interested in waste, fraud, and abuse, they would start there.
So I wanted to stop it right there just because this is a long interview and I don't play all of it, but I want y'all to understand, I'm talking to MAGA people right now. So Speaker Johnson, you know, Hakeem is the leader who works with him. He's out there saying that there absolutely will not be any cuts to Medicaid. They're lying. And when it happens, guys, what are you going to do? Is that going to be justified? They are lying. In order to cut that much money, you can only go two places: Medicaid, Social Security, or defense. They're not touching defense. So there's not that much money anywhere except in the Medicaid or Social Security programs. So where are they getting the money, guys? Wake up, MAGA. Democrats have nothing to gain by lying to you. That's the Republicans' strategy. That's not ours. It's not ours. That's why we keep getting our butts whooped, because we deal in the truth and we're not fighting like they're fighting. But we don't lie and just tell you stuff. But, of course, you're still going to vote for him no matter what. There's a lady says, he can mess around with me all he wants. I don't care. I still love Donald Trump. I'm glad you do. I want to see how glad you do when you're out on the street, when it starts to come into your neighborhood, or when your grandma doesn't get her check, or mother or father, and that's all they live off of. Just you wait. I'm telling you guys, they have been wanting to do this for decades. And privatizing Social Security. Privatize? How are you going to do that? What are you going to do that? So I want to do one more on Schumer and Van Jones from CNN. He had a great point, and his is always very passionate. You know, I'm kind of lukewarm with Van sometimes, but so lately though, he's been on the money with things, and I appreciate his contribution to this movement. And here we go. Let's listen to Van Jones on his take on Chuck Schumer. So as you can see, the tone of this podcast is, Chuck Schumer, we're mad at you. We are mad at you, buddy boy. Buddy boy, you did the wrong thing. Here we go.
And how angry are Democrats at Leader Schumer?
I've never seen this level of volcanic anger at a Democrat ever. Ever.
Wow.
We could be grumpy. We can be frustrated with each other. There is a volcanic eruption of outrage at Leader Schumer because we want a Mitch McConnell. I remember when Obama had all the cards. Mitch McConnell drove Obama nuts, twisted his pinky, broke his kneecaps, and got stuff done for Republicans when they shouldn't have gotten an inch. They got miles. We have a Senate majority leader who is beloved in this party, but we want somebody who's going to stand up to this bully. Stand up to this bully. Do something. And if you shut the government down and it gets a little bit crazy, at least some politics is about the rationality. There's an emotional need to stop Donald Trump and Elon Musk from running over this party. And I think Chuck Schumer has radically misread the room.
Misread the room. That's the story, guys. So, Leader Schumer, who is the Democratic leader, minority leader of the Senate, has got the party in fracture. We were already in fracture, but that was our one chance to unite and do something and let the American people see that, yes, we're going to let them shut their government down. They're going to have to come back to the table and fix some stuff, and then we'll open up the government. Sorry, we had to use the American people to do it, but they're already firing people. They're already shutting down agencies. So the government has been shut down before, 7, 8 days, whatever, and we made it through. We could have made it through this too. You're wrong, Chuck Schumer. You're wrong. Very wrong. And speaking of wrong, this is probably the most chilling thing I've ever heard from Donald Trump since forever, as to what he said in his speech to the DOJ. I mean, the hypocrisy of it all, and how he's thinking that justice is served and this and that when he pardoned January. It's just so much in here, and it's freaking frightening. I just want you to listen to this. This is frightening. So this right here is very chilling, and I don't even want to listen to it again because it just gets me that much more upset every time I hear it. But this is the speech of a man who said he wanted to be a dictator, and pretty much is doing it. Here we go.
We will expel the rogue actors and corrupt forces from our government. We will expose and very much expose their egregious crimes and severe misconduct, of which was levels you've never seen anything like it. We had to take all of that abuse, even during the trials. We had to take tremendous abuse, like, these wonderful guys. They're not legitimate people. They're horrible people. They're scum. And You have to know that.
A speech that had been billed as law and order in terms of what the address would be about. Out front now, former Trump White House lawyer Ty Cobb. So Ty, what do you hear there when he's talking about, legal opponents, other opponents as scum? He also said the prosecutors who investigated him are deranged. That was his words. 64 minutes of this. What did you think as you watched?
I was focused a little bit, Aaron, on what a sad day this is. I mean, his inauguration, of course, was the death knell of, the independence of the Justice Department, which has flourished certainly in the post-Nixon era, 50 years plus. That ended at the inauguration, but Trump definitely danced on the grave today, and it was sad for those of us like myself who served in the Justice Department and took those responsibilities seriously. I noticed Pam Bondi said that they're not going to stop serving him. There's nothing about serving him in the oath that those people take. They take an oath to preserve and protect the Constitution of the United States, and that concept seems to be missing there.
So he's got the Department of Justice in his back pocket. I'm afraid he does, guys. So let me give you a summary of what his speech and what he said in his speech. Just a summary so you'll know exactly that. That was only a snippet of it, so I'm going to let you know what he said in the speech. So President Trump's recent speech at the Department of Justice raised eyebrows for several reasons. He called for jailing his political opponents, labeling them as scum and lawbreakers, which many saw as a direct attack on the independence of the DOJ. He also criticized prosecutors and judges involved in his past legal cases, referring to them as corrupt and deranged. Additionally, Trump described himself as the chief law enforcement officer. No, you're not. And vowed to reshape the DOJ, which critics argue undermines the department's traditional independence. His remarks included baseless claims about election frauds and attacks on the media, further fueling concerns about the politicization of justice. The speech, which was delivered in the DOJ's Great Hall, was seen as a significant departure from norms, with Trump using the platform to air grievances and assert control over the department. So this is a revenge tour, guys. Remember I told you on one of my earlier podcasts, this is all about revenge. Trump has lived his life in the courts because he's a crook. And I've recently been studying Roy Cohn, the guy who was his mentor, who kind of taught him to be who he is. Roy Cohn was the most hated lawyer person, political person ever lived. He was hated of how he handled things. He was underhanded. He didn't care about who it hurt or anybody. And that's what Trump takes his playbook. And that movie that's out, guys, I can't wait for it to come on to streaming. It's The Apprentice. And it talks about the life of Donald Trump and how Roy Cohn, who was a part of the McCarthyism when they were torturing all of the people, the Hollywood, and calling them communists. And remember that? You got to go read about the McCarthyism, Senator McCarthy. He was in that part too. I mean, he was old enough, and he was around when you were around, some of us. But Roy Cohn was a detestable human being. That's who trained Donald Trump. That's going to give you the story. So you must watch that movie, The Apprentice. It was nominated for a couple of Oscars here and there. You must watch that movie and understand. Donald Trump tried to get the movie banned. But, it didn't happen. So that's what is going on with the Schumer deal. So I wanted to end with our discussion on, we've been talking about Gavin Newsom and how everybody is upset with Gavin. Gavin is having playtime, guys, with all of the most right political right people that you've ever, conspiracy theorists that you ever wanted to see on a platform. He's sitting up having little pod guy talks with them. And I mean, and every time they bring up any kind of lie, Gavin is just sitting there. What are you doing, Governor Newsom? You have always been a leader of the Democratic Party. You've always been the guy we've had our eye on to one day lead this country. And then you go off and do this? This is not a good strategy. If you're going to have them on there, there should be a war. Because you don't agree with anything that they have. But you've been agreeing with a lot of stuff. What is going on, Gavin Newsom, dear Governor of California? This is going to put a microscope on your whole state. Boy, so I just want you to listen to this little clip I found on the whole deal and what's going on and what people are thinking about with dear Governor Newsom and his podcast of bringing on the most right-leaning podcasters and leaders that you can ever think of and pretty much having a little boy time with them, which I find disturbing. Here we go.
This is part of the deprogramming, is it?
On the surface, Democratic Governor of California Gavin Newsom wouldn't seem to have a lot in common with Steve Bannon, the right-wing populist and former chief strategist for President Donald Trump. But in a sit-down on Newsom's podcast, they found some surprising agreement on tax cuts, economic policy, and senior White House advisor Elon Musk.
You know, I imagine some of your issues with Elon, and we haven't even gotten to that. And I know that's all.
Do I have any issues?
Yeah, I know. What you called him evil, you called him a racist. You have a
parasitic,
illegal alien. I think was your exact phrase. Your phrase, not mine. Though we may share some commonality in terms of concern about what he's doing.
Corporate America is my enemy. Number one, they're the leader in the woke movement in this country, but they're also, the greed and avarice has always been for the leaders. In fact, the tax cuts they take, and one of the reasons I hate allowing them to do stock buybacks is they game the system to drive up stock prices.
Thank you.
To me, if you
same page. You got to tell your president that, Steve. You got to tell your president that.
Even when the two disagreed, they served up a cordial discussion.
It's impossible not to note the world that we're living in relationship to everything happening with the markets, everything happening with the with tariffs, everything happening with CR and a potential government shutdown.
Don't be giving tariffs stink eye. I don't want to start off with you giving it stink eye already.
We'll stress.
I'm a tariff guy.
I appreciate that, and we'll see. We'll stress test that.
The purpose I want to do this is I want to convert you to be a tariff guy also. This is part of the process to unwind you from being a globalist to make you a populist nationalist. It's a long journey. It's a long journey, but I think you'll get there.
This is part of the deprogramming, is it? I appreciate it. And by the way, for the record, I'm going down your rabbit hole right here.
Newsom, often mentioned as a possible 2028 presidential candidate, made headlines in an earlier episode of his podcast when he broke with Democrats and called it, quote, deeply unfair to allow transgender women to play on women's sports teams. After backlash, his office issued a statement.
Disturbing. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? What are you doing, Gavin? Well, I guess it'll all come out in the wash because numbers are numbers and people are listening. Democrats are listening and we don't like it, Gavin Newsom. You may not be our guy anymore. A lot of people are making some crazy, stupid decisions these days. And it's so scary as to what's going on in this country. Frightens me. But like I said, I know that God is in control of everything. This chaotic behavior won't last long. God will fix it. Yeah, he certainly will. But in the meantime, faith without works is dead. And that's why I'm working to give you the truth, to let you hear what's going on so that you can get involved as well. Write your congressman, write your senator. Jasmine sent out a tweet today, or X, whatever you call it now, to please write your senator if you're not happy with what's going on. Write your congressman. their phone numbers. I need to bring that number the next time. There is a place you can go to, a website or something. One of my listeners left it for me as a comment, and I'm going to share that with you on the next episode so we can have it. I'll have it posted during the whole podcast if you're watching the video version of the podcast. But if you're listening, I'll be sure and mention that out. So I'm hoping that this week will be a better week. I forgot about the one thing I forgot about was Trump's little tweet that he put out on, and I don't think I put it in my deal for today. I'll have to cover it the next time. But you know, Trump is now saying that he believes that everybody that Joe Biden pardoned is not valid because he used a auto pen. Auto pen is like DocuSign. I know some of you that bought a house where it sends it to you and you just automatically sign it out. That is an acceptable thing, and it is allowed in government, has been allowed for a while. And so now he's trying to say that, but the underlying message is this, guys, is that he thinks that Joe Biden was out of his mind and people were running the government for him and somebody else signed that. Yeah. So that is what the underlying is. And here it is. I just got the tweet for you here. So it says, the pardon, this is his from Truth Social. The pardons that sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs, okay, thugs, he's calling them thugs, and many others are hereby declared void. And he does this on Truth Social. This man thinks, oh, God, oh, I can't take it. Hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact they were done by auto pen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them. More importantly, he did not know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Therefore, those on the unselect committee, he's talking about the committee that was on him for the insurrection, who destroyed and deleted all evidence obtained during their 2-year witch hunt of me and many other innocent people, should fully understand that they are subject to investigation at the highest level. The fact is, they are probably responsible for the documents that were signed on behalf without the knowledge or consent of the worst president in the history of our country, crooked Joe Biden. Yeah, that's your president. So this is all about revenge. Back to revenge. He wants to get Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Adam Schiff, anybody that was on that committee. Hunter, he wants to get Hunter too because he was pardoned. He wants retribution on all of them. That's what he did. This is all about. So, MAGA, if you're listening, if you happen to catch one of these clips, because I will put clips out everywhere, start listening to the truth. Are y'all that much into this man? I almost said something that was kind of be lewd, but I didn't. I retracted. That you can't hear the truth? Is it that you can't handle the truth? What is wrong with you people? I just choose to not believe that we have that many one-sided, simple-minded, racist group of people in our country. But we do. And it's a sad day. But the fight continues, everybody. So that's my episode, guys. And I'm so glad that you joined me on the podcast. Now, please note that you can also catch all of my podcasts in video form if you want to look at my face while I'm talking and see some of the actual video footage, because I actually do show video clips of what you're hearing. You can check me out on my YouTube page, and there's always a link in the podcast as to watch it on video as well. So wherever you listen to your podcast, you'll see that message in the podcast, and you can check me out on my YouTube page. So it's been a great day, and we'll see what happens on tomorrow. Everybody, have a wonderful day, and good night.